Welcome back. My name's James Johnson. This is my lovely mother, LaDonna.
Hi,
and
guys.
We're back after a long break. We have read the first 5 books of the Song of Ice and Fire series and seen the first 7 episodes. We are a week and a half approximately away from the new season, and we didn't want to make new videos until we had stuff to say. So we're going to make a couple of videos. So this one's called Sansa's Scars.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
We've been doing these videos, I think, about as long as anybody else on YouTube. Not to toot our own horn, but
maybe so.
We've been out there a really long time in case any of you have not seen us before.
Okay. So this one's called Sansa's Scars. We're going to talk about generally Sansa and what she's been through, but we're leading to something that we're going to tell you all that we think is true. So first off, Sansa's start, I think, let me talk about it in a literary.
Sansa's Scars?
Yes.
As opposed to Stark. It sounds the same.
Sansa's Scars. They'll be able to read it because it'll be the title of the video.
Perfect.
So Sansa starts off the books and novel, and I'm not going to differentiate so much, but she starts off both of them as an ignorant girl, and falls into a bunch of tropes about young females, like obsessed with princes and fairy tales and living in a fantasy world. She then goes through several traumatic events, one after another. She watches her father die. She gets her family ripped away from her. She's forced to marry Tyrion. She's tortured by Joffrey. She gets manipulated by everybody at King's Landing. She watches the Battle of Blackwater Bay, which is a horrific war scene. She is eventually finds out that her mother and brother have been killed. She gets reprimanded, punished, scorned, tormented by her aunt for a short while. Humiliated, and eventually gets sold by the person she arguably thinks she can trust to marry one of the worst people in the series, and is raped by him repeatedly, and ultimately finds her way out of that situation. She has suffered so much trauma that for her to have survived at all is a testament to her tenacity. She tells,
as Jaime Lannister said to Brienne, girls like her don't seem to live, and Brienne said, I don't think you know Sansa Stark.
And Tyrion said, Sansa, Lady Stark, you may outlive us all.
Survive us all.
You may survive us all. So in hindsight, especially after the most recent season and her killing Littlefinger, we now view her as a powerhouse. She is strong, independent. She tells Jon, I'm not going back there. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I'm going to kill myself if I have to go back to Ramsay. She faces Ramsay on the field of the Battle of Bastards before she goes in.
And says, you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah. And she goes behind Jon's back to manipulate additional forces to come help them in that battle. She has a wonderful scene that speaks volumes where she is in Winterfell and she stops Lord Royce and asks if they're adding leather to the armor. Shouldn't they be? She's finding out about how much wheat and etc. that they have. She also has multiple connections to Jon and telling him, no, you need to do this. We need to take our home back, for example.
Bucking him in choices.
Yeah, most recently calling him out in front of everybody, saying, well, if we don't punish those who betray us and don't reward those who fight for us, then how are we supposed to show people that they're good or bad? I forget how she phrased it, but that's ultimately where she was coming from.
Well, where's the reward system here?
And particularly her manipulation of Littlefinger. That is the crux of her becoming a woman, and I don't mean to do that euphemistically. I mean becoming an adult.
Her character arc.
Her character arc, becoming a full-fledged a power player, for lack of a better word.
No question.
And
which we suspected was coming for quite a long time.
Or death, because that seems to happen to everybody else. But
well, we talked about this in early things. That there had to be a character arc. There was one for Dany. There had to be one for Sansa.
Yeah,
you know,
unless she died, is all I'm saying. But you're right, 100%. So Some of her greatest tormentors are her greatest teachers. Cersei, for example, Joffrey to a certain extent, only not because she learned from him, but because she learned how to be around him, to prostrate herself before a king when she had to. But Cersei taught her the greatest woman a weapon has is what's between her legs. Also taught her that about wrath and
how not to rule.
that too. Sansa was kind of gone by the time she actually had power.
But she said, when Jon says to Sansa when she's talking to him about be careful of Cersei, he says, "You sound like you admire her," and she says, "I learned a lot from her."
Yeah, and obviously her greatest teacher has been Littlefinger, and that is why it's so important that she killed Littlefinger, because it showed her being able to manipulate the head manipulator. And she and Arya played that together, which meant she tied in her oaths to her sister as well. So my mom mentioned to me before we started this video that in the books it says my skin has turned from porcelain to ivory to steel.
If there's one quote that is really truly attributed to her, one meme you could, it was the quote in the books, and they have not said it in the show, but it is, "My skin has turned from porcelain to ivory to steel." So
the reason we mention that is because right now is because it's a portrait of who she was. She's porcelain, like a doll, easily broken, fantastical
fairy tale,
and it ties into the doll.
Ned gave her the doll.
Ties into the doll Ned gave her. And then ivory is more malleable, not like clay is malleable, but it can be carved and it can be etched.
Scrimshaw is made
what you mentioned.
Ivory is elephant tusk,
but it can be cut into figures.
It can be terrific art.
And it's hard. It's durable. You can hit ivory, unlike you can hit porcelain. So, but then steel, which is solidified, it doesn't return to anything unless it's melted.
It means incredible strength.
Incredible strength, unmoving. So that leads me to the point that we did this entire video for, the real point. When Sansa spoke to Littlefinger about Ramsay, after she was with Ramsay.
This is the same with Brienne.
Brienne, Littlefinger, and Sansa.
And they meet in a private
Looks like they're...
stable? Something.
It implies that they're near the wall.
Yeah, somewhere private.
I may be wrong about that. But Sansa says, "What do you think he did to me?" And what do you think Ramsay did to me? And Littlefinger says, "I don't know."
Did he beat you?
Did he beat you? Yes, that. And Sansa says, "I can still feel the things he did to me.
Inside my body, not in my tender heart."
She doesn't say inside my body right now. Inside of me, she feels it. Just to juxtapose regardless the idea of whether it's the rape or otherwise. She also has the scene with Marjorie where she says that she talks about Tyrion and marrying Tyrion. He's got that scar. Well, Marjorie says, well, some girls like scars. Some girls like short men. Some girls like tall men, bald men, hairy men. There's also...
She says, even with the scar.
Even with the scar. There's also the scene with Sansa and... I'm trying to remember exactly which scene. It's like we're trying to list all the things, and my mind is slipping me. But... first off, scars are a big part of the storyline. Ned starts the first episode out in his bedroom showing his chest, which has scars in it.
Tyrion is scarred in a way by being a dwarf and psychologically tormented by his father.
The Hound.
The Hound is a major player in the scarification with the burn.
Right. With Miranda and Sansa.
And Jaime loses his hand. These are major scars.
Major scars that impact character. Jaime,
absolutely.
Particularly. The Hound particularly, even though it didn't happen during our timeline, our current timeline. When Sansa and Theon are trying to escape Winterfell, Miranda mentions that she could theoretically harm Sansa as long as she didn't injure the parts that were pretty, or Sansa's womb, the parts that made children. And Sansa specifically tells Littlefinger in the scene I mentioned earlier, I know he never touched my face. He liked me pretty. There's also the scene where Ramsay is about to be put to death by Sansa, and he says, "You'll always have a part of me." And she says that he'll disappear. So this leads us...
And when Joffrey is torturing her, about to, in the throne room, he says, "Leave her face. I like her pretty."
Yeah. So if you can't tell what we're saying, Ramsay has literally cut Sansa.
Like them.
And she is literally scarred. This is our theory, but it's going to happen this season because it's the last season. So, and it plays into the Hound, because the Hound's scarring is a representation of him being a monster on the outside, despite his warmness inside, his genuineness.
And as an adjunct to that, if you have read the books, it's clearer in the books, kind of. Her interactions with the Hound are constantly him saying, "Look at me, look at me, look at me," because she can't stand to look at that scar. It's scary. He's big. He's frightening. But the scarification is there for a reason. In the show, they took away the dialogue between the Hound and Sansa about how he got burned and gave it to Littlefinger.
And
as a matter of fact, you can look at the Hound's audition.
Rory McCann's audition, in which he states
he actually does that scene, but they took it away, and I know why. They're trying to hide this thing from us.
So when Sansa and the Hound ultimately end up together, they are a juxtaposition of each other. He's forced to be hard at the beginning. She learns how to be hard over time, and they're both scarred. It's a Beauty and the Beast thing, but they're both Beauty and they're both the Beast.
And they both started as little fairy tale guys. He loved the little fairy tale soldiers.
He wanted to be a knight until his brother destroyed what that image was to him, but specifically around the figure of a knight.
Exactly. That's when he threw him in the fire. And you know, Sansa's been in a fairy tale world. She was raised to be a princess. Arya was not, but Sansa was raised to be the next princess. The Starks, if I might say this to people who don't know, were the kings of winter for thousands of years before the Targaryens came over with their dragons. So they have a long history of being kings and queens. So
another thing to add, this is the scene where Yara comes to save Theon. When Ramsay shows up, he has blood streaks on him as if he's leaving something where he's hurting somebody. Sansa, I don't think, is at Winterfell at that time, so it's not Sansa. But the idea that he cuts people, that he harms people.
Well, yeah, he likes blood in bed. Let's put it that way. That was him and Miranda.
So let's add another level to this. If you were cut deeply, how would you fix that wound? You would sew it up. Sansa is the seamstress of these novels, and the tapestry is even part of the books, not so related to Sansa's, a Littlefinger thing. But in the television show, Sansa has repeatedly designed her own clothes. She tells Cersei in one of her first scenes in the first episode that it's a lovely dress. Who made it? I made it. Oh, maybe you can make me one day.
Needlework.
There's
that Arya's board work.
Also,
with.
The first scene. Mm-hmm. There's the scene with.
She can keep her needle. I have one of my own, as Arya said.
Arya. Sansa is making her dress at the Eyrie after Lady Arryn died, and that dress ends up becoming a representation of her becoming a woman as well.
Yeah, more of a seductress,
taking power. Trying to become a power player. Mm-hmm. She is complimented on her outfit at the wall later with Jon, and Jon says he likes it, especially the wolf bit. She says, "Good, because I made you one too." This is partly for me to say that she is able to hide her scars because she is able to make her own clothing so that you can't see them. And to add to that, this is a side note, if Sansa were to get pregnant, say by the Hound, and it were long enough in this last season for her to have that child, she would be able to hide it to a certain extent using the clothing. And wouldn't that be a surprise if near the end, just like Melisandre unveiled her pregnancy, Sansa unveiled her pregnancy as she's about to give birth, and Sam's the only one there. If that happens, Sam would clearly be the one to give the child. Well, Bran's not got any training in giving birth to somebody. So Sam would be the one to
Sam will be the one. Too many foreshadows for birth. He sees Gillies. He tells Jon, let's take her. I can figure out how to help somebody give birth. He's been to the Citadel. He has seen medical procedures.
There's a scene with Gilly where Jon goes, what do you know about birthing a baby?
Exactly.
Well, I read a little bit about it. There's also, Jon says, have you ever done it before? Sam says no, which mirrors Sam with Jorah, where Jorah says, have you ever done this procedure before? And Sam says, no, but I'm your best option. I'm your only option.
I'm your Huckleberry. I've been watching James Stone. But we'll leave the Hound alone for a minute for those of you who have not seen prior videos of us.
Then let me close the Hound situation by saying another theory, unrelated to the particular video we're doing, is if Sansa and the Hound have children, it will be triplets. It's a representation of the Hound's flag, and we haven't had triplets yet. We've had multiple twins.
I'm not sure about that.
I know, but we're mainly focused on the scar. So the seamstress aspect is extremely important as well.
And the scarification, back to that. Now, we set up for you all the things. Remember that my skin has turned from porcelain. Remember, she drops the doll to the side when the Hound leaves the room at Blackwater, meaning my childhood is gone. The fairy tale is gone. It's over. Scrimshaw, ivory, being able to carve into it, that it's getting harder, but I can still affect it. It's almost like her life story has been put upon her skin. Now, I don't think it might be deep enough to have caused her to stitch things up. We don't know. But certainly, we know emotionally. Y'all are going to say in the comments, well, we know emotionally she's been scarred. I'm telling you, I think she truly is scarred.
And that's the point of this video. We think she's literally scarred. And I'm painting a picture. The more detail we get in what we think will occur, the more unlikely it is to occur. And we are well aware that all this is theories, and it's the discussion of it that we're enjoying. We're not presuming to be right, although sometimes we hit something and we go, you know what, I think we're right.
Yeah.
So this is one of those moments, which is why we made the video. So
if I can add one thing about the costume.
So we think she is literally scarred. And I'm painting that picture when she and the Hound first have sex. And I'm painting too particular of a picture, and I don't like going into it because I want it to be real when it happens. But the Hound is going to be timid, and Sansa will not, because Sansa will have to be the one to initiate it. And that's Sandor, in my opinion, is going to be like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to do this. I'm not sure he's ever had sex, if I can be honest.
We've talked about
that. But when she undresses, then she will see the scars, and he's not going to give a shit.
He's been scarred the bulk of his life. I want, though, to talk technically about a few things. James has mentioned we saw her making dresses. The first one at the banquet, when that was literally filmed in the pilot, not the first episode. So she was even younger than we've seen her. Then, she makes her dress at the Vale. Then she makes this dress with a wolf bit on it. The person, Michelle Claflin, I think it is, who is a costume designer, there was a big article about this in Entertainment Tonight, Entertainment Magazine. Look at her costuming. Now, instead of seeing any bodice showing or anything, everything is wrapped tight. It's black or gray, and it's up to here. And that is because she is protecting herself in a way. But we also think it's because she's hiding something.
Yeah. And she's literally scarred. You talking about the Eyrie?
No, I'm talking about in these last seasons. She is buttoned up.
And again, Ramsay would have left her face in parts you could see pretty. So.
Also, if you look closely at her costume on the front of the Entertainment Magazine, not only does she have this protective gear on, it's her costume. It really is, in the season we just watched. But if you look at her side, there's a kind of belt hanging, and it looks like there's a knitting needle hanging from it.
Cool.
Not really a knitting needle for those who knit, but it's a needle-like apparatus hanging. So there's something there, folks. And if we're wrong, God knows, we've been wrong before. We've been doing these videos 8 years now. We're used to it.
Yeah, it's almost over.
So
Anything else you want to add?
Not on this, but we're coming back with a bunch more.
So
love y'all.
To add one last little bit with the Hound and Sansa.
Yeah,
I don't want to dwell too much on it, but the idea of scarification, if she is scarred, the playing against the Hound is of huge importance. Hers are hidden and represent all the things she's been through. His are overt and represent the trauma he went through as a child.
And they have so much in common at the end. At the end. And
I love thinking about their first interaction this new season. In this new season and how they play that. So, anything you want to add?
Let me think. Oh, what a character arc for both of them. That's all I
And in hindsight, Sansa's, and I mean, it's layered upon layers. So I don't mean to say that this is the one thing, but I think of huge importance for Sansa's arc is the fact that she seems so ignorant and innocent as a child.
Naive. Let's not say ignorant. Naive.
But it is ignorance. Yeah. But naive, ignorant almost implies a willful lack of a desire to learn. But naive is a better term.
Well, they had a great conversation on the wall, John and Sansa, when she says something to him, and John says, Father always said that anything anybody says after the word "but" is horseshit. And she goes, Father never said that to me. And he says, no, he wanted to protect you.
Yeah. That's at Winterfell.
Yeah, it's at Winterfell.
All right. Anything else?
No, I want to say one thing. My teeth are messed up. I'm 62 and I had an appliance fall out, so I can't speak right. So please don't dump on me for that. I'm still trying. I love you.
We love y'all. Till next time.